on the screen.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome tonight. Joni is on vacation in Puerto Rico, so she will not be here. My name is Erica, and I will be talking tonight with Sonya Swan. She is running for the state representatives out of the Des Moines area, and she is going to talk with us about how to get involved legislatively as far as reaching out to your legislators and how to go about that, how to find it, and the basics that everybody's constantly wondering, how do we do this? So Sonya, why don't you start off with the basics and tell us how to find our legislators.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me, Erica. So contacting legislators is kind of a passion of mine because I've been citizen advocating at the Capitol for quite a few years. And sometimes I've done it well. And in the beginning, I didn't do it so well, right? And so what I find, especially now that we're in summertime, is that this is a great time to contact your legislator. And there's two kinds of legislators. There's your legislators that represent you in Washington, D.C., and then there's your legislators that represent you locally here in Iowa, to the Iowa House and to the Iowa Senate. So everyone that's watching, if you're in Iowa, you have two legislators. You have a House member and you have a senator, right? So you've got a representative and a senator. And they are there to serve you, right? They are there to be your voice. We actually do not live in a democracy. We live in a republic. And in a republic, you have representatives that represent your views to the legislature. But they cannot represent you if they don't know how you feel about certain issues. So right. It's really important to actually contact them and get to know them. And have them get to know you and what issues are important to you as well. So the very first step would be to go to the Iowa legislature site. And this is a great site to play around on for a lot of things. But this first one, you could actually just find by doing a internet search and just typing in Find My Legislator, Iowa. And it should pop up with a website. I'm going to read it to you. And I think Erica's probably going to post it later somewhere above or below this video.
I will get it in the comments eventually.
Yeah, it's www.legis.iowa.gov, and then the slash mark, and legislators/find. And that's going to take you to a page where you can type in, there's a few little tabs you can click. So you can either type in your whole address, you can type in your city name or your zip code. Your whole address will give you a more accurate list. So your street address and your zip code, and then it's going to pull up your legislators for you that are local here at the Iowa State Senate and the Iowa State House. And you should have two. And their pictures are going to pop up so you can see who they are. You can recognize them. And if you click at it's either on their picture or just right below their picture, there'll be a link and that will take you to their page. So many times legislators have their phone numbers and their emails, sometimes personal and the state capitol phone numbers and the state capitol emails, and sometimes their personal emails, so that you can email or phone call them from their listed information.
So when we came out to Des Moines earlier this year, we went up to the State House with you. And one thing that I ran across when I was talking to my legislators is I would tell them, hey, I emailed you about XYZ. And I would get a blank stare like, well, why would I read an email? So what is the most effective way, in your opinion, to reach a legislator?
So that really depends on the legislator themselves. Some legislators are great at answering their phones and phone calls. Some legislators are great at answering texts, and usually their cell phone numbers, for those that are real communicative, their phone numbers should be on the legislative site, their cell phone numbers. Okay. And some of them respond really well through email. Some even respond through Facebook or social media. So what I usually recommend people do is follow them in every way that you can, right? So find their Facebook page. Just about every legislator has a Facebook page, and follow that and click the follow button or the like button, and communicate them. If you're not getting a response back, communicate with them in every way that you can until you get a response back, right? Facebook message, text, or call, email. So those are kind of the four ways that most legislators respond really well. And this in the summertime is a great time because the legislative session is not going right now. So we ended a few weeks ago, and now they're back to their regular everyday jobs or their regular everyday businesses. And so they have a little bit more time when it's the legislative session time, which is in January. So our next legislative session doesn't start until January. It gets really busy. If you've ever been down to the State House during the legislative session and seen the crowds of people in the Capitol, you know that it can get very, very busy. And there's a lot of bills that come up very quickly for them that they have to make a decision on and move forward with.
Yeah, the day that we were out there, it was the first time I'd been out there in years. And of course, we came on the day that it was like student field trip day. But I mean, it was just crazy how many people were there. All the racket, like, I just couldn't get over how busy they were. And, you know, the process of getting them to come out and stuff and, you know, filling out the slips and everything was just so interesting. And then, you know, just having those few brief seconds, like, because everybody's trying to get a piece of them while they're out there, you know, so you want to just make it as quick as possible. And it's I know that a lot of people like to send long emails and stuff. I see a lot of things get passed around with like these almost a novel worth of information, and like these people don't have time for that. So I think that's something important for everybody to understand as well, is that you want to be very concise with your words. Don't be like me where it's like you have spew all this stuff out. You want to tell them, like, I'm contacting you about this, and this is how I feel. Please do this, you know.
And if you need to link a reference or something, you know, put that reference link in there for them, etc. But yes, brief. If it's during the legislative session and you're sending them an email, keeping it very brief is important. And when I visit with legislators myself, I usually email them or text them and ask them if they have time, anytime in the next week or so, to go grab a cup of coffee with me. You can't actually buy your legislator a cup of coffee. You each have to pay for your own coffee because, you know, we don't want any favoritism going on. But you can go meet them for a cup of coffee, and usually they have a little bit more time. So if it's a more complicated issue or something that you really want to share your heart face to face with your legislator about that particular issue, then a face-to-face meeting is really great. And you usually get a lot more time than you're going to get if you wait until the legislative session is open and possible bills come up on the topic that you are interested in and that's important to you. We've gotten as much as 2 hours with some legislators just going to coffee. I always take my children with me. So don't be afraid to take your children, because it's a great learning experience for them.
Yeah. I know I got involved in politics at a very young age. My parents would go caucusing, and they would always take me, and I went to all the different levels, and they would have, you know, just being around it, and then also going and talking to them, working on campaigns, just volunteering and making phone calls. I learned so much about the process. And then I volunteered my services as a sign language interpreter for a while and got to see a lot of really cool stuff that way. So any way you can get involved, and I take my children with as well, because that's how they learn. And also, you know, legislators, they're humans too. You know, it's a way to connect parent, like, look, this is my why. Here's my little baby. Here's my why. And, you know, when we were there, we had one legislator was so excited about the baby that she was like thrilled that I let her hold the baby. And it helps. They like to see the children involved. You know, they don't think that you have to push your children out. Otherwise, that's how they're going to learn. And they're going to follow your example when they're older. You know, they're going to do it as well.
And I think in the beginning, when I started going to the Capitol to advocate for my favorite issues, I think I was a little intimidated and scared that, oh my gosh, these people are legislators. And I really put them up on a pedestal. And I really didn't even know 20 some years ago, you know, really I should talk to my legislator and educate them on the issue that was important to me first, and then educate more legislators, if you feel comfortable with that over time. So your legislator, really your two legislators are the ones that need to know your heart the most. And if they're a local legislator, they're going to respond usually with a personal response. If you email your federal legislator that is representing you in Washington, D.C., it is likely you are going to get just a form letter in return about whatever their position is on that issue.
Right.
And you just expect that because they get thousands and thousands and thousands of emails a day. Luckily, here in Iowa, we're a small enough state population. Each legislator for the House has about 60,000 people in their district. 30,000 people in their district. And then for the Senate, that would be double. So, so that's a lot of people to represent, but you would be surprised how many people do not email their legislator.
Right.
So I had a legislator last year say, this particular bill came up for him and he had no clue whether it was a good bill, a bad bill. He didn't know anything about the particular issue. And he said, but I got, 5 people that emailed me for it and 15 against it. So from his own district. So he said, guess what? I'm against it because 15 people in my district, I'm representing my district and the majority of the voice there. So your voice does matter. I know a lot of us start out thinking, I don't, my voice doesn't matter and I don't want to get involved in politics or government or bills or that kind of thing because, it's just, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway. But fortunately for us here in Iowa, that's not necessarily true. There are a few legislators that are pretty staunch and they have their own opinion and they may just vote that opinion. But most of them are really open to hearing all the sides of the story.
And that's good too. And I've run across some legislators where they just straight up do not know, and they've told me point blank, I do not know. And when I came out to Des Moines, we were able to give some good educational pieces to them when we were out there, and it's important, and no matter how scared you are to make that contact, you just got to bite the bullet and do it. When this particular legislator, I called her and she was one of my first phone calls in years. And I'm well versed in this, but it's been a long time since I've done it from this side of things. Yeah. And I was stuttering along and whatnot and forgot half of what I was going to say. And it turned into a quick conversation about, she didn't know about it. Oh, okay, well, here, I'll get you some information on it. And then when I came out there to Des Moines, she actually remembered talking to me on the phone. And we were able to make a good connection. So those are important things too, in my mind, that you need to do. Just making that effort, letting them know, hey, I'm here. No matter how lame you may think you sound, they're still going to remember you and listen to you. They know that you're nervous about it.
Yeah, and so I think once you establish that connection and just say, hey, when can we meet? Is there a time you have in the next couple of weeks? What's your favorite coffee shop? Let's go for coffee. Most of them will do that. And then you can present and ask them some questions. We love to take our kids and we love to interview the legislators. We like to say, what made you run? And, what drew you to want to become a legislator? And what do you do in your real life? Now you can find out a little bit about your legislator more than is on that first site that we gave you at, I think it's, there's a votesmart.com and then there is also Ballotpedia. Those are two great sites to go just to get more background information on your legislator. How many kids do they have? Do you have anything in common with them that you can converse about and really relate? We all like to talk to somebody where we can say, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. I've got some kids. Yeah, I went to such and such, organization or such and such church or whatever. We like to find those commonalities.
Exactly.
With people.
And you can't find those commonalities if you're not connecting.
That's right. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention was if you have ever been at the Capitol, and some of you may have not, and that's okay, but you will notice that the whole middle of the Capitol between the between the Senate side and the representative side, there is kind of a round area. And in that round area sit all the lobbyists. So the lobbyists are hired by different groups, organizations, to represent those organizations' voices to the legislators on both sides of the House and the Senate. And so if you don't make your voice heard, then the only voice they're going to hear on the particular things that are important to you will be the voice of those large organizations. And there's some great lobbyists representing some great organizations there that might even agree with you. And there may be many that aren't. So in order for you to have your voice heard, it's important that you not only contact your legislator, but then maybe invite a neighbor or a friend or somebody else that's in your district that can come with you, so that there's more voices there. They understand there's more people in your district that feel the same way you do.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I was just checking to see if we had any questions, but we don't yet. So I would encourage anybody who's watching, if you have a question, please ask it. I'll be checking my phone periodically to see if there are any questions, because Sonya is such a great resource. I've learned so much from her over the years. And so this is really an opportunity that you don't want to let slip through your fingers. I mean, Sonya does try and make herself available, but she is only one person, and is a single mom and has her many jobs and a campaign and everything. So, she's taken this time for us. So if you have a question, make sure you put it in the comments and we will try to get it answered for you.
Yeah, and I think once you have made that connection, then whatever is your issue that you're advocating for, just short, brief emails, just updating them on any news that comes out in the news media about it, or any new developments in about that particular issue, or some new piece of information that you find. You can, again, educate them in the off season, and then they will be educated by the time they get back to the legislature in January. And who knows, you might have more coffee dates or a phone call from time to time. And they really are just people, right? They're just people in your own community that have been brave enough to step forward and represent the rest of the people in the district.
Right. And I know it can be intimidating to go alone. I'm in the Quad City area. So if you're in the Quad Cities and you want to meet with a legislator, but you don't want to go alone, let me know. I'll go with you. That's what I do. I'm more than happy to accompany anybody.
And I do that a lot of times. I'll find people that want to go visit their legislator in a district, but they don't want to go by themselves. And so I'm happy to go with them. And I'll still probably be doing some of that this summer, even though most of my time will be spent campaigning to get to the State House. I still love the issues that I advocate for, and I love to help people connect with their legislator, even if it's not about any of my issues. I'm really passionate about getting people involved, because the longer I have advocated, the more I have realized that your voice is very powerful.
And I want to show something that came out today. I'm going to screen share it, just to kind of show people that their voice does matter. We've all been worried about, back to school, what's going to happen with that. And they came out today and they put out the guidelines for reopening the schools this September. Or August. I mean, my kids go to private school, so they don't start till September. And one of the big concerns was the face masks, because they're not good for the children. And if you look here, number 4, I have it highlighted, they are not going to be requiring the face coverings. And that's because people spoke up. Our school superintendents, oh, I have a baby coming.
Hello, baby.
Hey, Sonya.
I wish I was there and I'd hold her for you.
I know, she loves cuddles. No, I lost my. Oh yeah. So, a lot of people don't realize that our school superintendents and the school boards, those are the elected officials, and so you can reach out to the school board as well. And a lot of people did that, and they listened. Many parents weren't going to send their kids back to school this year. So I just use that as an example of, why it's important to make these phone calls, why it's important to be involved, because if you don't speak up, they don't know how you feel. And they're just going to, usually the ones with the loudest voice are the ones that, you know, I'm honestly surprised we won that battle, because the people in favor of the masks are so loud with everything.
Well, the squeaky wheel does get the grease, is the old
Yeah,
saying, right? And so if you squeak loud enough, sometimes you get that attention, as we have noticed with what's going on currently. So
right,
I think I think it's super important to know who your legislator is, and I don't feel bad if you do not know who your legislator is, because I can tell you that if I talk to 99 people today, if I just walked down the streets of Des Moines and said, do you know who your legislator is? Do you know who your legislators are? They would not be able to tell me.
right,
And that tells me people have really disengaged from this process and maybe think that they are not important anymore. And I have one friend that won their legislative race by 37 votes.
yeah, I've seen that happen quite a few times.
So just a few votes can make a difference. Some people say, well, my vote doesn't count. What's the point of me going to vote? Your vote does count a lot.
Right.
And so, you know, that's the other thing you were talking about, Erica, that you were taught to go to your caucus and stay, right? Maybe volunteer and be on a central
Yep.
committee to help candidates go door knocking or making phone calls. Those are really important things. And if the candidate that is representing you right now is not listening or is not open to hearing all sides and maybe changing their opinion on something, then find out who's running against them. And if you need help to do that, we can help you do that. Find out who's running against them and go talk to the candidate that's
Right.
running against them and see if that candidate will listen. And if you think they could represent you better than the person that's currently sitting in that seat. I do that many times. I've talked with many candidates before they ever get to the state house, because that's, you know, again, we've got more time now than we're going to have when we get to the state house.
Right. And another thing, and I'm just kind of bringing up things as I think of them, because, you know, I've had so much experience with so many different aspects of this. A lot of people also just go with their party lines. You know, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, so I'm only going to look at these people. But really, that's not always the way to go either, because, you know, I personally am registered independent because there's some points I agree with the Republicans on, there's some points I agree with the Democrats on, there's a bunch of stuff I don't agree with either of them on. So, you know, you can't just go by the party lines, like, oh, well, this person is in this party, so am I, so they must be right. They may not, like, not everybody holds all the values of the entire party, so you have to do your research on that as well.
Yeah, and you can research, you can find out things about your legislator, like have they introduced any bills themselves, and what did those bills look like? And you can find out how they voted on certain bills. So you can kind of tell if a legislator just votes their party line, or if they are a maverick and an independent thinker, and they're willing to buck the system for what they believe is truth and right, no matter what the party lines are. I've always said that it doesn't matter what the issue is, if, you know, that I will dig down and research and get to the truth, because it doesn't matter. I'm not always right. Somebody else is not always right, right? There's this wise saying that says, the first to state his case seems right until the second comes and examines him. So
Right.
we've, as legislators, and hopefully your legislator will do this as well, it's really important that we look at all sides of the issue. And sometimes you all that are the voting public have a great idea that no legislator has ever thought of yet.
Right.
Some kind of a way that we can come together and get a win-win solution to a particular issue that maybe Sonya hasn't thought of, or that senator or that representative hasn't thought of. So just know that you're powerful. You have a lot of ideas, and not every legislator doesn't know everything,
Right.
nor do they all have, you know, ideas on how to, you know, everybody's got a 5-point plan to change the world, but does
Right.
it really manifest in actual change?
Right.
Would be the question.
Right. And, you know, just because when you go through a legislator's voting history, or, you know, what different things. If they don't agree with you, don't go calling them, all angry, because they might not know. They went with whatever the most voices said on their stuff. So you have to make sure you're kind of compassionate. Don't call them all angry because they don't agree with you and I'm going to vote you out. It's my mission to get you out of office. Don't do that, because they're just doing their job, and at the end of the day, that's all they can do.
Yeah, so we always recommend, of course, being kind and compassionate and understanding. And if voting them out is something that you want to do, then you just start that as grassroots apart from that. But we really need civility back in our politics. And I would say civility back in our social media.
Yes.
So rather than just attacking each side, that's why we have so many independents in Iowa. Did you know that? We've got more independents than we have anything else in Iowa, more than any Democrats, more than the Republicans. We've got more independents.
I'm the majority.
Because nobody wants to say I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, because they're going to get jumped on by somebody.
Right.
So let's not be that somebody that jumps on them, right? Let's be the person that brings together solutions and peace. And we don't need to be jumping on each other or making generalizations.
Yes.
I mean, there are some generalizations that we can make,
right,
probably based on each party, but just the hatefulness really has to stop for us to be able to progress and move forward and just have actual discussions on actual issues, rather than, well, I don't like you because blah, 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 right? Personal attacks and that kind of thing are just really not helpful to the dialogue.
I agree 1,000%. The rhetoric that is just, I see on a daily basis, like there's times where I just don't want to be involved in social media. There's just so much, and we're at an impasse. All we're doing now is seeing which side can scream louder. Mm-hmm. What good does that do? It doesn't do any good. We've built ourselves this giant roadblock, and we're stuck unless we can learn to give and take, compromise, talk to each other, and move forward.
Yeah, and really just discuss the logic of each decision that we make. What's it going to look like today? What's it going to look like in 5 years? What's it going to look like in 10 years for all of those decisions? So, I was asking my mom, who's 82 years old, if it was like this when she was younger. And she said, no, we actually could sit down and have some civil discussion. Right. There were some icky people in both parties, and there was still some name calling and that kind of stuff. But they were actually able to just sit down and have discussions. And it seems like that's gone by the wayside. However, that's on social media. When you're in person with your legislator, most legislators, 99% of them, I know a couple that will be possibly mean and rude, but 99% of them are going to be very nice. And you vote them in and you vote them out. So they serve you. Exactly. That is their job, is to take your voice and all the other voices and make decisions to represent you.
Exactly. Let me check. I don't see any questions at this point. So yeah. I'm taking that as a sign that, the information has been clear and concise. So did you have anything else you wanted to add? I think I'm out of questions.
Yeah, out of questions. Well, this is a great start. And just realize that I'm sure whatever groups you advocate for, or whatever topics you advocate for, if you'd like more information on how to get involved or how to read that legislative site, because you can check on certain bills, you can see who's on the committee that's going to pass through those bills. So hopefully we're really going to be able to give you some education this summer. Maybe on my Empower Iowa with Sonya Swan page, we'll be able to give some information about how do you do that. Most people don't know how to find their legislator, much less how do I find a bill, or what if the environment is a big thing and I want to check water, any bills having to do with water. So we can show you how to do that you can go in and you can actually check and see who has introduced any bills that have to do with water.
Right.
And that's what the lobbyists do all day, every day. So we as citizens have to do that too. And I have this little button here, and I got it at the Capitol. It says, I am a voter. And this is celebrating women's suffrage. And if you don't know what women's suffrage is, that's us fighting for the right to vote. And in our country, a lot of groups have had to fight for the right to vote. Did you know when our country started, only property owners could vote and only white men could vote, right? And so we have done a great job in this country over the years of expanding everyone's access and right to be able to vote. So this is very powerful. And I just want to encourage you to get to know your legislators so you know, is your vote going to count for what you want it to count for, right? And all of the mamas out there that have little ones or medium ones, all the daddies out there that you're busy and maybe the day of voting comes and you don't know if your vote's going to count, please know that it counts. If you think you're not going to get there in November, and I know that sounds like a long way away, but if you think you're not going to get to the polls in November, register for an absentee ballot. And we can give you the link of how to do that for your particular area of Iowa, right? We can get you a way to register to vote absentee ballot. That still is okay, right? And it's a great way to make sure that your vote doesn't get overlooked if you think you're going to be busy that day. If not, take your kids with you because it's a great experience, even if they're not able to vote yet, of going to the voting booth. You're kind of training them up of why this is so important. And they get that experience and they get more comfortable with it. I just went to vote early with my two girls in the primaries, and we went downtown and we actually voted downtown because there's a couple of places you can vote. So I'm sure that Erica will be getting that information out to everybody for the areas that there's a lot of you guys in the eastern part of Iowa. Yes. So she'll get that information out for you. And if you have questions about, I don't know if I'm registered to vote, do I need my registration card? All of that kind of stuff, we can help you get that information. So I know that when I'm going to door to door knocking to talk to people, that I'm going to have voter registrations right there in case somebody says, you know what, I've never voted before, but I think this year I really want to vote. Yep. So I'll be able to take their registration and turn that in, whether they register with the Democratic Party or the Independent Party or the Republican Party. We'll make sure that they can vote because that's important, regardless of party. It is not only just a right, it's an obligation.
Exactly.
Now that we've won this, let's not make this a moot point for what all of these people fought for in all the different suffrage movements. Let's not make what they fought for and spent so much time to make sure that we had a right to do be in vain.
Exactly. We don't realize how lucky we are to even in this day and age, there's other countries, they don't have these opportunities. We are so lucky to live in America and have the opportunity to have a say in who is going to represent us and who is going to govern us. So I know that with everything that's been going on, it's kind of hard to believe that right now, but it truly is a privilege that everything that we have, we shouldn't take it for granted. We should really take advantage of it and use it. Well, I know me and the girls will be in line in November to put our votes in.
Yeah. And people get in boats and they swim all across the ocean. They paddle all across the ocean just to get to the shores of the United States of America, because we are the land of the free and the home of the brave. And they know they're going to have equal opportunity here. Some people that are from out of our country, as far as, recently arrived, actually take advantage of the American dream, sometimes more than those of us that are born here. And we just take for granted that stuff should be, we should just get stuff because live here. And then people from outside of our country are like, oh my gosh, this is such an incredible opportunity to be in a capitalistic society where I can go and put a value on my talent and skills and provide good content or good value to somebody else, and they're going to pay me for that. And our businesses aren't owned by the government, they're owned individually. And, these concepts are also good to talk to your kids about the difference between capitalism and socialism and communism. There might be pieces that you like about different ones, and there might be pieces that are really bad about each one. I personally think capitalism is an amazing way that we have built our society. And do some people abuse it? Absolutely, they do, right? And they abuse something in every other system as well. Abusers are going to be abusers no matter what the system looks
That's
like.
right.
It doesn't matter. But that doesn't mean you and I have to be that way, right?
Exactly.
And we can spread the message of, walking with integrity and, putting a good price on a good value. I mean, I think during this coronavirus thing, the people that took advantage of people and really stocked up, and anyway, we'll go there. But
right, let's not get started on the toilet paper thing, because
on the toilet paper, right?
I swear to God, my family started this whole apocalypse because for the first time in a decade, I ran out of toilet paper. I have always stocked up, have big Sam's Club things in there, and I stocked up for while I was on maternity leave. We run out and there's no toilet paper on the shelves. I could never run out of toilet paper again because I triggered an apocalypse last time it happened.
Yeah, so there's always some care and compassion that has to be in no matter what your government system. But this system that we have in the United States of America, even with all the upheaval that we have right now, is one of the best systems that has ever been created. We're a very baby nation, really. We only have, a couple hundred years plus behind us. And we're really still a baby nation. And what we are going to be in the future, you are going to determine that. And the people that you elect are going to determine that. And the number of you that go talk to your legislators and tell them what you want that future to look like, because hopefully we'll have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of more years as the United States of America. And we've got to think long term that we want this country, and we choose to make this country strong so that we can continue to be a bastion of hope for those people in other countries that do not have what we have, and want to come here and build a life because they can.
Dr. Zajac says, yes, vote. Thank you for the tips. Dr. Zajac has been watching us a lot lately, and so we appreciate when he gets in the comments and adds information. He does that quite a bit. So thank you, Dr. Bob.
And you can even get a sample ballot. I helped a couple people this year in the primaries. They didn't know what the ballot was going to look like or what initiatives were going to be on it. And so you can even get a sample ballot.
No, see, I didn't even know that.
Ahead of time, and you can print it out and look at it and research those issues ahead of time. Because how many times have we got to the voting booth and you're like, oh, I didn't know this was going to be on the ballot. I have no idea about it. Initiative XYZ.
The judges always get me every time.
Or maybe you don't know anything about the judges that are up for election, or maybe you don't know anything, and that gives you some time ahead of time to do your research so that you can be an informed voter and not just like a eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Right.
Or, when I remember my first couple times, when I first started voting, my dad would write out a list of, you're going to vote for this person. And then I get in there, I'm going to do what I want to do because I'm 18 and I can vote for who I want to.
That's right.
But I remember looking at all the judges and I'm like, oh my gosh. All right, Jesus, take this pen. It's showing my age here because you used to fill out color in the ballots. And so, yeah, that's always one that's always got me. So knowing that you can get that ahead of time, that's really good to know.
Yeah. And so you and I can talk about it so that you can get them the right links for their areas and post those up so that they can get their sample ballots. And
Yep, we will get all that lined up and put together. Going back,
vote for the person, not the party, right? And I know that there's some party people that are on one side or the other. They're like, no, you have to always vote. And you know what? If I had a good legislator that was in an opposite party, but I knew that they could represent me well, I may vote for that person, right? I have never voted straight. I've never voted only one thing. Right. I've always looked at all of the candidates, looked at all of the issues, and made my choices from there. And sometimes it was, something that not everybody else picked.
Quick, we keep bringing up people who have come to this country and just love our system. If you ever have a chance to look up Dinesh D'Souza, he is a filmmaker. does documentaries. I don't agree with everything he says, but he has a really interesting story of coming to America and seeing the process and becoming involved. And so,
Is he the one that wrote the book? Then I have not read it yet. But somebody just told me yesterday there was a book called The Destruction. I don't know.
He did the documentaries Obama's America and Hillary's America. I've only seen one of them, and like I said, I don't agree with everything he says, but hearing his perspective as an immigrant coming over, that was just really neat.
Yeah, so maybe can you type his names in the comments and below,
yes,
so that people can
can
look him up? And
when we're done, I can't see the Facebook screen, I can only see the Zoom screen, so once we're done, I'll go back and put all this in for everybody who wants it. And then when I get this up on the YouTube channel, this will all be in the YouTube description as well.
So if you already know who your candidate is, you know you want to support them, you know that you have similar views, this is my encouragement to you. Being a new candidate and going through this process for the very first time myself, ask to volunteer for their campaign. That's going to help them a lot. Donate to them. $5, $10, $25, $100, whatever you can do. This is a very costly process, and there are big lobbyists on various sides, right? So you guys can help make a difference. We kind of walk into this candidacy blind, so to speak, and it's really, really important. I mean, they're going to need door knockers. They're going to need people to make phone calls, and they're going to need some financial contribution. So if you've never donated to a candidate before, now is the time. And starting with these local candidates, is huge, right? I mean, donate to whoever you want to donate to. The ones in DC as well, or whoever is your presidential candidate nominee. But your local ones are going to make the difference in your day-to-day lives here. And we are a state, United States. So every state gets to run itself differently, as you have noticed through these last few months. Every state runs differently. And I have to say, I am so thankful to be living in the state of Iowa, as I have for the last 27 years.
I live on the Iowa-Illinois border, and I am very grateful for the side that I am on.
Yes.
I will say, it is very important to make sure that we're giving to our local people. We talk about all the time about, wouldn't it be awesome if we could get people we know and people from our movement to run for office? Well, then they do, but then they have no money behind them. We have to support them if we want to get them in office and have our voices heard. So,
yeah, and hopefully one day, maybe some of you out there will, say, you know what, I could do this. And if you talk to enough legislators, and you don't have to know everything, but we do need good representation of just the people, just regular people that are not career politicians or etc. We need just good people that have good common sense that can move this state forward.
Yep, exactly. So I think we've covered just about everything. Still no questions. So I think I think everyone understands pretty well. So hopefully that we got some good information out there and cleared a few things up. If you need more information, you don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'll try and tag you in the comments, Sonya. Sometimes it lets me tag people. Sometimes it doesn't. Because it never lets me comment as myself. It always has me commenting as the page. But I'll try and get you tagged in there so people can reach out to you as well. This is a conversation that needs to continue, and don't ever be embarrassed about asking a question. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Everybody starts somewhere, and me who's been involved in this stuff for years on end learned a few new things tonight. So don't ever think that you're, just because you think everybody else is gonna know. I promise you there's somebody else who has the same question.
I always say the only dumb question is the one you never ask.
Exactly. I agree. That's why I tell my kids.
I ask a lot of questions because
Me too.
That's how we learn. We've got to ask, and I still have a lot to learn myself.
Same here. So, well, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight, Sonya.
Yeah, my pleasure, my joy.
I'm going to end the live stream. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and like this video if you have a chance.
Thumbs up.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Oh, that's not what I want to do.